back. I think, guys, we are on episode 10. Episode 10 of the Baseline Banter. I'm Colton Wilson. I am joined by Travis Wilson and Chris Smith. Guys, before I throw it to you, I want the audience to know to stick around. We have a great interview where we brought on Hartford girls basketball coach Vinny Daniels, the other half of Chris Smith, so to speak. And we talked the seeding process. We talked the WIAA Mid-Season girls seeding that came out this past Friday. So you don't want to miss it. Stick around. Guys, how was your week?
My week was fine. We had some good things, had some not so great things happen in the basketball world, but all things that we can grow and get better from. And I'm excited for this next week to only have one game to prepare for. It's kind of at this point in the season, it's nice to have that little breath of fresh air where I get to see my family a little bit more and hang out with them and then kind of just hit the reset button a little bit and get back to work.
Yeah, Trav, how about you?
It was a good week. Our boys basketball team at Reedsburg is kind of scuffling, but my son Brock, that's a freshman, he had a career high 22 points yesterday,
nice.
this weekend. So on the freshman team, to clarify. But so that was good. He's probably, by the way, our only sub or under 15-year-old that listens to this. He listens pretty religiously. So.
We
awesome.
Should bring him on for a segment just where he critiques what we talk about.
Well,
we can get that high school critiquing.
My son will ask if I can turn it on so he can hear my voice. He's like, Dad, I want to hear what you sound like on there. Can you just turn that on for a little bit? So I'll turn it on for a little bit. And he'll be like, okay. And then he'll walk away 10 minutes in or less. So.
In some other news, Colton, though, a couple things. We're very happy. I think we had teased this a little bit, that we at Bound, we announced a partnership with the Wisconsin Baseball Coaches Association, where we're going to be providing and empowering some information for them this spring as kind of that official resource and database. So really excited about that and continuing to build out those partnerships, relationships at Bound and build a new home for high school sports. So really excited about that outside of the basketball.
Yeah, as always, our presenting sponsor is Bound. Head over to Bound, Wisconsin, and during this basketball season, you're going to find the Power Index, which is a great way to see where you can filter it down by division. You can filter it down by where it looks like in your conference. You can divide it down by, hey, we just had those sectional meetings, or we had those sectional seedings come out. Compare it to the sectional Power Index. We have the filter there. You can find content, athlete of the week, a media poll within relationships to Zaleski. And as always, these scores, stats, streams, and schedules for all boys and girls basketball. We're going to hop right.
The most accurate and complete scores anywhere. We'll talk about that later.
It's not false.
We're going to hop right into our review because we really just want to get to that really good conversation that we had with Coach Daniels. It was over an hour long, really good insight, really good back and forth. So, Trav, we're going to start on the girls' side. What happened this past week? We had quite a few milestones hit just looking at the list. We had some really good stories. We had some pretty big games that we previewed last week that we can talk about. So let's get into it. Girls basketball review from this past week, last week of January.
Well, anybody watching hopefully would have seen the game of the year, quite potentially, between Tosa East and Arrowhead last week. Tosa East got a big win in overtime, 76-66. Just an incredible game. Everything that we hoped and wanted that matchup to be lived up to the hype. Could be the first of two meetings between those two teams. We don't know. But that was everything that we wanted and more. The only thing that I wanted more would have been a free way to watch that game. It was the stream was behind a paywall, unfortunately. Understand why. I'm not arguing against it. Just I think there was a lot of people that really would have liked to watch it that probably didn't and went to watching other games or paying attention to other games because they couldn't do it for free there. So I don't want to bury the lead, but that game was huge.
Yeah.
But I do want to get to some of the milestones that happened because we had some big ones. We had yet another girl go over 2,000 career points. We teased it a little bit last episode. Kylie Butler from Argyle Pecatonica had 36 points on Tuesday against Blackhawk, kind of fitting there with the connection of her sister Jen, who's the head coach. star player at Blackhawk, and her family kind of, or sorry, not her sister. I'm thinking of the other of
I'm thinking
Brooklyn.
of Brooke.
Yeah, Brooke. But her sisters did play at Blackhawk.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a memorable milestone for her, hitting 2,000 points against a conference foe. Had a couple girls go over 1,500 points. I don't know that we've kind of highlighted that, but do want to mention it. Maya Dernbach from Almond Bancroft and Jada Siebert from Stevens Point went over 1,500 career points. And then going over 1,000 career points, Addison Schmidt from Rice Lake. We talked about Rice Lake a number of times with Addie Shepley going over 2,000 career points, but they also have another 1,000-point scorer there with Addison Schmidt. Mercedes Grimm at Reedsville, Ruby Ringo from Ladysmith, Taylor Klingbeil from Medford, Autumn Crow from St. Mary Catholic, who we'll talk about more a little bit later, Ava Cook from Omro, Brooke Michelati from Middleton, and Molly Olson from Albany Monticello also went over that 1,000-point mark.
I do appreciate how confident you are in pronunciation of all the names. When me and Chris, we look at some of them and we're like,
I guess that's the route that you have to go. You just run through them and just hope that you got them right.
I feel pretty good about all. Michelati, I really like that one. I like my pronunciation on that one. I'm proud. Maybe I'm wrong, and they can tell me, but that's a fun name to say too. So
hey, it's I know it's not a Wisconsin thing, but also at the same time, like it is right next door. But how about that Madden Greenway breaking 5,000 point club?
Gosh,
5,000, and like Minnesota basketball in high school is a little bit different because you can play starting 7th grade. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. So it's a lot different, obviously, but 5,000 points, that is quite the threshold.
Yeah, and to tie it back into Wisconsin, though, Providence Academy came to Wisconsin for a pair of games earlier this year and left with a pair of losses against Arrowhead and Tosa East. So really proud Wisconsin moment there with those two teams getting wins over a very good Providence Academy team and Madison Greenway, who's going to Kentucky and one of the top players in the entire country. So moving on to some other milestones. Evelyn Albrecht from Poinette. I think we mentioned her earlier this year going over 1,000 points. Last week, she became the school's all-time leading scorer as well. My wife informed me that she is actually the daughter of one of her classmates, so some connections there. Milena Granquist from Wittenberg-Burnhamwood already had 1,000 career points. She recorded her 1,000th career rebound as well. So she's a 1,000 kid,
That's
Western Illinois commit.
That would be fun to get a full list of that, of athletes that have hit that mark.
And we've talked about this before. The WBCA record book, which is really the only record book that is available for Wisconsin, only has scoring. It would be a fun project to try to compile some other stats and some additional stuff. I know that there was even somebody hit a number of threes. I can't remember if it was boys or girls. And we're trying to figure out if it was a state record. And unfortunately, none of those other things really exist as a state record other than scoring. But how about Macy Stremlow from Verona? They had an easy 41-point win over Central East, but she broke a school record with 49 points, and there's been some outstanding players there at Verona, as we know. Not only 49 points, but she had a triple-double with 49, 22 rebounds, and 10 steals in that game on Friday. So an incredible performance by her. And then Lynn Geyer from Kewanee, an outstanding coach, had her 400th career win. One of the best women coaches in state history. I think she's in the top 5 for wins by a female coach coaching girls basketball, and has had some really great teams that have been at the state tournament and championship and everything like that. So some big milestones there. Looking at review of last week, again, have to start with the Tosa East Arrowhead game. Arrowhead also played Notre Dame on Saturday, so it was a tough week for Arrowhead. They bounced back, though. They did beat Notre Dame 75-64 on Saturday. But earlier in the week, we had quite a shootout on, I think it was Monday, Rice Lake and Prescott. It was 80-61. Rice Lake won. But we had 2 players from opposing teams that had 40 points, which is not common. Addie Shepley, who we talked about earlier, had 43. And then Violet Otto from Prescott had 40 in that one. Do you guys recall seeing a game that had opposing 40-pointers?
Off the top of my head, I can't think of one. No.
I mean, I'm sure it's happened. I just don't know.
I mean, 30s happen all the time, right? But like, yeah, once you
Yeah.
get into that 40 threshold, like that's special. I mean, that's pretty. I'm sure that was really fun to watch.
Yeah. Also, Kimberly took down Appleton East. We talked about that earlier in the year, where Appleton East had beaten Kimberly early on. So Kimberly's now up to 8 in a row victories. So looking good for Coach Lepisto. St. Mary Catholic had quite a week. A couple big conference victories against Manitowoc Lutheran. They got a win 55-46. And then on Friday, I believe it was, they took down Howard's Grove 59-51. And we'll talk about that one a little bit later as well. Autumn Crow had a huge game. And I clarified this, I think, earlier this year, but in case anybody's wondering, Autumn Crow from St. Mary Catholic is not related to Mickey Crow, the legendary boys basketball player. I did ask Jeff Chu, the outstanding head coach at St. Mary Catholic, and he confirmed that is no relation there. Also, speaking of Appleton East, they had a tough one later on. They lost to Hortonville 63-44. And then a really good game. I had a chance to talk to Coach Laura Stavnis a little bit this week, and Edgewood got a nice win over Xavier 57-44. That was number 4 versus number 3, I believe. And Edgewood is now up to, I believe it's 9 wins in a row. They had a few losses. They had 4 losses pretty early on in the season against really, really strong competition, but they've got it going. And Coach Stavnis has got that group playing really well. So, that's our kind of quick review of last week in girls, but again, showcased by that incredible Tosa East Arrowhead game.
Yeah, some of these games, just to put a teaser out there, it's the top teams in the state playing the top teams in the state, and Coach Daniels did a good job of talking kind of about some of the, not restrictions, but hurdles that he's having with regards to scheduling.
Which is interesting, and I wanted to expand on it with him a little bit. I didn't get a chance to. When we talked to Coach Merg and Coach Lepisto and a lot of other coaches, those top-level coaches, they all play each other. I mean, Coach Daniels is playing all the top teams, Arrowhead and Tosa East and Oostburg and Notre Dame. They all play each other at the top. But it was interesting. He was saying kind of that next tier, he's having a hard time finding games against that next tier of teams that don't want to play up as much. So it's kind of forcing, in some ways, those top teams to just have round robins amongst themselves.
Yeah. Trav, on the girls' side, we came into the week. I think we had 8 total unbeatens. Obviously, the 2 D1s squared off, so we're down to 7. Was that it in regards to the girls? Are we still sitting at 7 this week?
Yep, still sitting at 7. Arrowhead was the only one that went down last week. Now, we'll talk about coming up in preview, but Wisconsin Dells is one of those teams. They've got 2 really tough games coming up this week. Their schedule to this point has not been all that strong, but they're going to get a couple real tough tests this week.
Yeah. That was our girls review. Again, we're hitting milestones every week. We're getting some really good games. We're previewing all the games. We're reviewing all the games. So basketball isn't over. We got 3 weeks left in the girls' side, 2 weeks left, 3 weeks, I think. Right?
Yep.
4 weeks on the boys of the regular season. So still a lot of really good basketball to be played. Coach, we have a list.
Yeah, we sure do.
For milestones hit this week. Just like we did last week in girls, there was a lot of boys that hit that 1,000 point mark and one that hit 2. Why don't you go ahead and
let's see how I do. Let's see how I do here. See if I can do as good as Travis does.
Confidence.
We'll start with the 2,000 point club. Amari Herford, who's been scoring a boatload of points this year.
Yeah.
From Beloit Memorial, going over 2,000. Congrats to him. He's quite the player.
44 to do it.
Yep. Yeah. It's nuts. But the 1,000 pointers, we got Zach Hermson from Lancaster and Bryce. I can't. Krubal Lockard. Like, that's just, it's a mouthful. Bryce Krubal Lockard from Dodgeville in the same game. That's fun. Like, that's really awesome, actually, to have something like that happen in the same game.
So Tyler
I wonder
Dictanis,
what they did.
Tyler Dictanis from Queen Bee Radio reached out earlier in the week and let me know, hey, this is coming up. Had you ever heard of opponents doing it in the same game? I personally had not. I've tracked it now for 2 or 3 years where I've seen teammates do it plenty. Have you guys ever seen or heard of opponents hitting that milestone in the same game?
I have not.
Pretty cool moment. And
Yeah.
that's two kids that I've coached against for the last 4 years.
My wonder is like, did it happen close together during the game too? You know, like
Back to
what?
back buckets.
Yeah, was it within like a couple minutes span? Was one in the beginning of the game? Was one at the end? What
I
did they
think
stop the game both times? Like, what did they do? I want to know.
I think it was. I mean, I'll have a chance to see it when I go do film, but I think they were a little spread out. I know Kruba only had he needed like 18, and he only had 2 at half, so he scored quite a few of his in the second half to get to that mark.
Yeah, so Zach and Bryce, if you're listening, comment on something and let us know how it all went down. But congratulations. Moving forward, we got a whole bunch of names here yet. Myron Reuter from Platteville, Alex Burgett from Holman, Bevan Dennis from Riverdale, Aaron Christensen from Drummond, Marcus Webb from Whitefish Bay, Miles Ravenscroft from Hillsborough, Jake Farley from St. Thomas Aquinas.
You said that much better than Colton. I love that pause and that subtle, see it can be done.
Deuce McDuffie from Nicolay, Griffin Knoll from Pecatonica, Brandon Davis from River Ridge, Caleb Arcan from Clear Lake, Christian Bartle from University School, Cal Losi from Port Washington, and Theo Trader from Lodi. Also have a couple I think we may have missed, or was it just one? Oh, no, actually it was just somebody that became the school's all-time leading scorer, Jakari Smith at Milwaukee Bradley Tech, coming up at the list with 1,199 points. So he'll be going over that 1,200 mark pretty quickly here.
He went over 1,000 a little bit earlier in the year. I do want to
That's right.
I do want to give a shout out to those SWC kids: Zach Hermson of Lancaster, Bryce Grubauer Lockhart of Dodgeville, and Myron Ryder of Platteville. Those are 3 kids that I've coached against the last 4 years. So 4 kids out of one conference to hit that mark in one night is pretty cool. So congrats to all 3 of those guys.
And I'll stay in that Southwest area. How about Bevan Dennis from Riverdale? He's only a junior and hit 1,000, and that's not a program that's had a lot of success, period, ever for the most part. So
yeah.
Impressive to see what he's doing. Guys, I will share while we're thinking and talking about this, over at badgerstateboards.net, which is an unofficial, unrelated, or badgerstatesports.boards.net. It's a message board of some former WSN message board regulars put it together when the WSN message board fell apart. They are working on a project to try to collect every 1,000-point score in the state from every school. So kudos to them. Hopefully we can help out and provide some additional information. The WBCA Hall of Fame exhibit at the Just a Game Fieldhouse in Wisconsin Dells also has a big 1,000-point display. That information does have to be submitted by the schools. So there's a lot on there. There's obviously going to be some that are missing as well. But that group, including Dan Barwick and Joe Herte, are doing a real impressive feat of trying to track down through whatever sources all the 1,000-point scores. They have it in a big spreadsheet. I'm going to ask if we can kind of post it or tag it on Bound as well.
Before we get to some of the coaching news from this past week, you touched on Bevan Dennis at Riverdale. There was another big thing that happened in the SWAL out of one of those smaller schools. Basketball got their second win over Cuba City in 62 years.
Wow.
For those that aren't familiar with that, Cuba City is obviously, Coach Pettigrew was there for a very, very long time, and they've had a lot of success. I know how important I coached at basketball for 2 years. I knew how important getting a win there would be. We had really close games when I was there, and there's just a magnitude of it. So congrats to Coach Childs, Joe Childs over there. That's a pretty cool moment for that group. Some other things. Marathon has already won the Merriwood South title outright. We're at February 1, and we've already got a conference winner. That's got to be one of the earlier clinches in a while.
I'd say.
It's interesting in the Merriwood because they play crossovers that count in the standings. And so you can, a lot of times there's one division that's better and they kind of dominate. But if one team in that weaker division is significantly better than everybody, they can open that gap pretty quickly.
And that's kind of what happened here with Marathon. Sorry. We touched on that Raleigh Racine St. Cat's game being one of the big ones to watch last week. Lutheran came out ahead in that one, and now they sit because St. Cat's, I think they took a loss to Martin Luther earlier in the year as well. So we're seeing Lutheran sitting alone atop the Metro Classic. I think it was another 2-point game. Trav, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Fairly certain it was another 2-point game. So they've played 2 games that have been determined by 4 points total so far this year. Drummond, a team out of the Northern Lights, they had a pretty big week. Not only did Aaron Christensen, the senior, hit 1,000 points, but they got a win over Mellon, so they're atop the Northern Lights Conference. And then they got another really good non-con win over a Webster squad. So shout out to Drummond. Some of the other big-time games, we had some Greater Metro, what I like to call madness, on Tuesday night. Marquette, who was I think they're under 500 in the standings. They got a win over the league leader right now in Brook East. Brook East is playing without the freshman Max McMullen, so quite a big loss there. But Marquette got a really big win. And then, Menominee Falls had beaten Hale by 40 points earlier this year, and Hale came back on Tuesday and got a 5-point win. So
not only that, Hale had 1 win to that point, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No wins in conference.
Yeah. And Menominee Falls was coming off some outstanding wins over MAS, Brook Central, and somebody else. I tweeted it the other day. That is like can't predict ball to the nth degree right there.
Yep.
Yeah. Just
Hale's coach got a water bottle shower after that game. I saw a video on online there.
Four of the teams now, the 4 teams in the Greater Metro, are all within 1 game. There's one, I think East has 2 losses, the other 3 have 3. So we'll touch on that a little bit in our preview too. Beaver Dam got a statement win over Waunakee. Ben Whitnabo, sophomore, had a pretty sweet dunk in that one. It got shared on the social media rounds, but Coach, you're pretty familiar with that program, so that was a pretty big win there in the Badger.
Yeah, and they're still shorthanded.
Yeah, they are.
It's a huge win for them.
Yeah. Kaukauna lost to Appleton North. So earlier in the year, Kaukauna won that game against Appleton North on a last-second shot by Andrew Jensen. Appleton North avenged it. They get the win on Tuesday night, or I think it was Tuesday night. Might have been later in the week. But now they're tied atop the standings in the FBA. Here you go. This one's just for you two. Aquinas gives Onalaska their first loss of the season. Onalaska wasn't the only undefeated team to go down this week, though. Reedsville took down Kickapoo in a ranked non-conference Division 5 game. So the senior point guard, Ben Procknaup, had a really good game. I was talking to Coach Wood from Kickapoo afterwards, and he said he was pretty lights out with the ball in his hand. So on the boys' side, we're down to 4 unbeatens now after this week. We've got Wisco, Seymour, Kewanee, and Tigerton. So 4 unbeatens left.
Colton, how are you not giving West Allis Central their flowers for that win over Waukee Northwest on Saturday?
Also, that it's a ranked matchup across state borders. West Allis Central has just played some really impressive out-of-state competition this year and won all of them.
I think when they played Wayzata, they were either the number 1 or number 2 team in Minnesota and got a big win. Unfortunately, they followed up with their only loss of the year against Appleton North. But Waukee Northwest was the number 2 team in Iowa's biggest division with a couple of Division 1 players. So it's been impressive. We talked about Wisconsin Lutheran representing the state of Wisconsin down at that event down in South Carolina over the holiday break. West Allis Central is doing the same thing, in a more localized area on some of those one-on-ones. They also beat East Ridge at the Midwest Players Classic.
Yeah, they're representing the state of Wisconsin, those teams, in a big way. I mean, you go to these different states or you welcome them into our state, and both on the boys and the girls side, we've been saying goodbye as they, skirt across the state lines again with an L in their pocket. So it's a pretty awesome thing to see.
That was the co-headliner for the Iowa-Wisconsin crossovers this week, as Richland Center did head to Decorah. Didn't go very well. They've got 6'11" Cale LaFrance Sr. there, who is son of NBA pro and legend Rafe LaFrance. So really good kid. And then they had another 6'5" kid that I can't place his name at the top of my head right now, but he's going to North Dakota for football, and he was just a brute. Took a drive baseline, went up and just hammered it down, and it was like, oh, this is the kind of athlete. Okay, so co-headliner with us, of course. Let's head to our stat sheet stuffer segment. On the boys' side, we talked about him as hitting that 1,000-point mark earlier this week. But Jake Farley out of St. Thomas Aquinas, you're welcome again. He had back-to-back triple-doubles this week in 2 victories. So he had 19 points, 10 rebounds, and 14 steals in a 46-35 win over Gillette. And then 29 points, 13 rebounds, and 12 steals, and an 84-60 win over Wasaki. He is the boys' stat sheet stuffer.
26 steals in 2 games is outrageous.
Yep.
All right, girls stat sheet stuffer, teased it a couple times. Autumn Crow from St. Mary Catholic, just a junior, went over 1,000 points earlier this year. We talked about her there. Again, St. Mary Catholic had 2 huge wins in conference last week. And in the game against Howard's Grove, she had 40 points, 10 rebounds, 6 blocks, 5 steals. Looking at her shooting chart, she was like 10 for 14 from the field. Her effective field goal percentage was 83.3. Her VPS, the player efficiency rating that's in the system, was 3.52, which is a real big number. So a huge performance by her against a really, really good team.
Yeah, because an average VPS is 1.0.
Yeah.
To put that into perspective a little bit.
Yep.
And 2 is crazy good. So
3.52.
3.52 is out of this world.
Usually we only see that out of the real low usage kids that come in for 1 minute at the end of a game and go like 1 for 1 with 2 assists or in a rebound or something like that. So
yeah, that's our review. That's our segment here. We're gonna kick it to ourselves. We got that interview with Coach Vinny Daniels where we really hop into the seating, so stick around for that. On the other side, we will have our preview, Trav's trivia, and then we'll get you out of here. All right, we are here with Hartford girls basketball coach, one half of the dynamic duo at Hartford with Coach Smith, Coach Vinny Daniels. Coach, how you doing this evening? Thanks for joining us.
Good, how are you guys?
Not too shabby. Chris, you know this guy.
Yeah, just one more day of the week that I get to see him for probably multiple hours. I don't know. We'll see. This week's a little crazy with us being late pretty much the whole week for practice, and you're going to be early, so we won't really cross paths too much.
True.
Oh, darn. So the big reason, Coach, why we got you on is the WIAA Mid-Season seedings came out. And before we hop into that, kind of just want to talk to you, see how your season's going. This is year 6 with Hartford?
Yep, year 6.
Your crew is out to a 12-6 start. I mean, you do a great job. We've talked to quite a few of the, Coach Murray, Coach Lepisto, and you yourself. Schedule brutal. You do a great job of getting competition early, often, and throughout the season. So let's hear how the season's going. You've got 2,000-point scorers.
Yep. Yeah, so it's been an interesting year. Obviously, we had to replace the loss of McKenna Christian, 2,500 points, playing at Minnesota right now. And there were some interesting things being said, understandably so. What are you guys going to do without McKenna, I think, is a fair question. I think some of our kids got really annoyed of it, in all honesty, because we have 2 kids who are committed to play Division I college basketball still, and Rita Kipper and Bella Claugus, who have both surpassed 1,000 points. Rita's only a junior, Bella's a senior. We have a kid, Lauren Voss, Division I college softball player, who Chris and I talk regularly about, had 17 rebounds on Thursday night against Slinger, 13 offensive, and she's 5'6". Just absolutely
She's awesome
ridiculous.
to watch. Awesome to watch.
Just ridiculous. So we have athletes across the board. Another kid, Alexis Shell, said 33 in that game, so it's our 3rd different girl who scored 30+. So I think from a scoring standpoint and kind of a system standpoint, we're pretty fun to watch. I think we have nights where we're really good defensively. I think we have nights where we're not as good defensively, which is kind of where we're stuck right now. But we've played pretty much everybody good. And that's kind of the challenge of the modern day is when you try to schedule games, will people play you? Will people not play you? And the answer is no from pretty much anybody who's going to be 10-6 at this point, because they just say, no, we don't really want to play you because of the mod. And then we're going to get into that with the seeding formula. It's kind of what this world has created. And it's just, it's good. I think I keep reminding myself that we're doing the right thing. We've lost 6 games, which is, I mean, that's the most games we've lost since the current seniors freshman year. So I keep telling myself we're doing the right thing, that we're going to be battle tested. And Chris has said the same thing to me before, and I'm always really calm about it. As he knows, I'm a very calm person, right, Chris?
Yeah, extremely.
Yes, so are you.
Yep, I'm the same.
So it's just it's a battle every day. It's challenging, but I think our kids have done a pretty good job in some of those games, and we've obviously had a lot of learning points this year too, where we've had to learn to step it up a little bit in new roles. So overall, I would say we're at a successful point, but there's definitely been some good things and some bad things.
Before we came on, and even you just alluded to it right there, it's the scheduling part, right? Where you are scheduling the really, really good teams across the state, but you talked about how some of those teams in D1, D2s that, you know, are not middling, that's not the right word, but that are around that 10-6 mark now, that the unwillingness to schedule games. Could you dive into that a little bit more? How has that affected you and your program's ability to make sure you get a full schedule?
Yeah, I mean, and it's even harder because Chris can attest to this. Last year we had a 10-team conference. This year we have a 7-team conference. So we went from having 6 non-conference games to 12 in 1 year, which is a wild jump to try to fill. So we've had to be really creative. We have just these random, like we played last Thursday. Our next game is this coming Friday, an 8-day gap at this point in the year. Because everyone else plays on Tuesday, so no one can play you Tuesday. You don't want to go back-to-back Thursday, Friday all the time. So there's challenges with that. You reach out to people, and like obviously, you know, we've been pretty good, which we're lucky. But like the balance of it is like, and Chris knows this, like how do you get the right mix of things? Is like we have kids 7, 8, 9, 10 in our rotation that we want to see, can they help us? Well, we're going to go play Kimberly like we played 2 weeks ago on a Saturday. Like we went 7 deep because we don't know, and people say, well, just trust them. But we haven't had really a ton of chances to do that because we haven't played a ton of those middle teams. So there's good and bad to it. And next year we lose 4 of our top 6, and we're kind of getting the same feedback about like, well, you guys are really good. Like I still think we're gonna be good, but will we be as good right away? And can we get the right teams to play us at the end of the year for us to get where we need to go? Well, everyone's trying to do what's best for them, and I get it, but it's just been really hard to schedule. And 12 non-conference games is a lot of games to schedule. I can tell you that much. And the conference realignment's changing again. We're going to get another one in a year. So I think just there's not a lot of consistency year to year to make it a really easy process for anybody right now.
Yeah, I feel you on that non-conference slate. We have 14 games ourselves, so it's been a struggle. Trav, you had something?
Yeah, you know, getting back to replacing McKenna Christian and you know, getting a new group of girls going this year. How do you approach that? Like, obviously, you had good players coming back. You said that, but even the best players that you have coming back did not necessarily have that role that McKenna Christian had. So how do you approach that, you know, from the end of last season? Like, is it a conversation you have in the off season, during the summer workouts, during summer camps? You know, what do you talk to Bella and the rest of the girls that are playing bigger roles? How do you get them comfortable with that?
I think with our group right now, it was a lot of natural things happening. I think as fun as it was to play with McKenna, because it was, and watching it every night was, I mean, it was wild. Like I actually, and Chris and I talk about this, like I was frustrated how much people didn't appreciate what was happening in the moment. Like when she's hitting a 25-footer for the 3rd time that game with a hand up in her face. Like, I don't know if people truly appreciated how unbelievable it was in her passing and everything. But I think really what was for us is I think we had kids who were ready to do it. If you haven't seen us play, which a lot of people obviously haven't, I have never had to encourage Rita Kipper and Alexis Shelsa to shoot. And I think they were really excited about the opportunity of kind of getting more shots, in all honesty. Rita's kind of an offensive killer that way. She had 39 against Arrowhead, for instance, where she scored 26 points in 10 minutes of the second half, going 7 for 7 for 3 in that 10 minutes. Is crazy. Bella's kind of the more had to change her role and like play some of the stuff that we did with McKenna. And I think she's been really good. But I think she just knew. She rose to the occasion because she knew. Very quiet kid. She's kind of been our inside-outside kid, which is what we did with McKenna in the past, where we post her up and she'll shoot the three and she'll drive. So I think we had pieces that could do similar things, but we've had to really more encourage the kids outside of our big three. Can we get scoring from Lauren Voss, we mentioned already, Regan Rashevsky, who plays a lot for us, Tegan Smith, who's turned into a three-point shooter, which we've just kind of really worked her up in confidence, talked like, you are a shooter now, you don't have a choice. And we have a big in Kira Bailey who stepped up really lately. So I think it's taken time for the others, where the conversations are one thing, but you have to get them out there doing it. And then playing Arrowhead, that was the big struggle, like length across the board. Outside of our big three, we really didn't get much scoring. So I still think there's a step we need to go on that realm. But I think it's a little bit of conversation, a little bit of kids ready, and at the same time, just like heavy encouragement, especially on the girl side, because I think they're naturally more worried about what other people might think than the guys are, which I think Chris would say is true, watching his guys a little bit too. And so a lot of encouragement, a lot of talk, but really just getting out there and putting them in positions to be successful.
This is our first instance of having two coaches, head coaches within the same school here on the podcast. Obviously, you two are pretty close. Talking to Chris, talking to you, you both are really close within your programs. Explain how that relationship with you two has really helped foster not just yourself as a coach, but just kind of the relationships between the programs and everything.
Chris, do you want to start this one?
Sure. I mean, when it comes to, he's a year ahead of me, right? So he's been there for 1 year longer than I have. I'm in year 5. He's in year 6. Vinny was on the hiring committee, and during the process of me being hired as the head coach, and so like he knows all the ins and outs of like that entire process and stuff, right? So there are some little questions here and there, and I'm like, hey, when I got interviewed, like, did this happen, or how did this go, or what, was this answered good, or did I like screw up this or whatever, right? Like those conversations have been had before. But like beyond that though, once I got hired, it was really nice to have a guy who has a similar mindset to the game, a similar work ethic to the game, and just being someone who I knew I could trust and like go to and talk about things. And I can't tell you the amount of times that we stop at each other's offices to just chat about basketball, and like usually it ends up being one of us that is the listening portion of it, and the other person is talking or asking questions, right? I mean, and I think we're each other's therapists sometimes for a while there, especially during the season. So it's an interesting dynamic, and like him and I have become such great friends through it all too, that it makes it even easier for us to really speak our mind and be honest about things when it comes to basketball itself. I mean, I don't think that there is even a quick like, well, should I say this or not? I think Vinny and I just say it because we know the other one's not going to get offended, even if we know it's going to be something he doesn't like to hear or I don't like to hear. Him and I both, when we're like not practicing but we're in the building, we'll stop in the gym and watch some of each other's practices. And there are times where I jump in and say something about his team to his team. And there are times that he does. And it's like unwarranted. Like we just step in and like, hey, like, how about you guys try it this way once? There were things like we were working on offense one time, right? And you came in, we were working on the dribble drive stuff, and you saw something that we did that your girls do, and you just worked on it, right? And you just stepped in and be like, hey, how about trying this next time? And like it wasn't even like, can I step in? It's just like he stepped in the middle of it and did it, right? So, we coach. I coach boys, he coaches girls, but we're a team, and like we love to help each other out, and we do as much as we can with that. So.
Yeah, I throw in like sometimes it's even as far as like random game planning things. Like
Mm-hmm.
You sent me a snap of that team playing that zone one time. Like, what does this look like to you? I'm like, oh, it's Merrimack 2-3. And then we go back and forth about a little bit. We're like, you installed it, we're kind of installing it, and kind of the back and forth. But I think at the same time, it's the biggest benefit for both of us is like a lot of times boys and girls coaches don't always get along at every school, which is hard.
Mhm.
We do. And at the same time, like I've coached his kids in the fall a little bit at times or in the summer at times, and we run the same system. So we're running 4L dribble drive. Like I can do that in a second. Like we had kids who had never really done the run and jump press, and all of a sudden I'm installing it in a timeout of a summer game with his kids, and it's the same terms, the same philosophy, same everything. So we're pretty lucky with what we have, and I think our assistants also really get along. Our staffs sometimes get together post games, both staffs together, super united front, and like our club is united as well in that way. And it's been really, really good. I'm waiting for, eventually when I get Chris's daughter in my program, then he's going to turn to that problem that they all turn into, as you know. So I think he's just being nice to me right now because his daughter's in 4th grade and his cooler daughter's younger than, so that's what I'm actually really excited about. But overall, I think it's rare to see what we have. And it's definitely unique. He might say we never get pissed. I kind of do sometimes. He's pretty harsh. He's very direct, but you get over it, I guess, over time. But yeah, it's fun. It's definitely fun to be connected that way and have someone you can, I guess, trust, which I think is the biggest part in this job. Trust completely.
Yeah, and I
Versus
think
always worried.
right, and I think it's awesome. Just that the fact that like I came into a new place to work and I had somebody who was literally like right there, that I became friends with right away, and they just we both have so many of the same interests and everything. So like that part's great because like he said, I mean I've been in places where as assistant in a few different places, right? Like there's been spots where head coaches on the boys and girls side and coaching staffs alike just do not like one another, and they refuse to work with each other, even on simple things like scheduling and everything. I mean, Vinny and I coach girls golf together, so like we see each other a lot. Vinny had to beg my wife for me to coach girls golf at a wedding over the 2
But
summers
it's
ago.
okay
But
because me and your wife read the same book, so like we get along and everything. So.
yeah, so there's that too. Yeah.
But then on top of that, I'll just throw in one more thing. I think it's trickled down to our kids as well. Our boys and girls kids get along a ton too. They even like hang out. Although too many of Chris's kids date my kids, so I don't know how I feel about that, but that's a whole other story. But at the same time, like it's really like when you talk about Hartford basketball, I feel like if you mention like, hey, what's the culture of Hartford basketball? You can't really talk about one without the other. It's just kind of collectively like this is what we've built: weight room program, pace of play, style of play, terminology, everything. So it's pretty cool.
I was going to ask, and you mentioned a little bit, Vinny, or Chris, maybe both of you. You guys have a great relationship. You have a good working relationship. If you have questions, you can lean on each other. If you're talking scheduling or just kind of the basic logistics of a program, you can run that by each other. Have you been in places, maybe not as a head coach even, but as an assistant, or you, Colton, as well, where that doesn't exist, where either it is, very separate siloed programs and there's either not communication or even maybe conflict at times? Has anybody experienced that? And how does that impact your program and just the school and athletics program in general?
I would say, so I obviously came from a background, Germantown to Hartford is mine. I was a JV coach at Germantown before I got hired here. And I would say like, we got along. The two programs got along, but we were just, you do your thing, I do our thing. If we're not playing on the same night, we'll encourage our kids to go. But in terms of like true connection, the way that we have, I would say it's just like we're more one program than it was two separate programs doing a great thing and supporting each other. I think that's what I would say. I guess I haven't really been in one that's been, I guess, against each other, but we've definitely heard about it talking to coaches that we go into, or head coach and the other team's head coach like won't even talk for months. I think Chris probably has more stories on that than I do, but overall, I think I've been pretty lucky both places, but this place is flat out different in that way.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of different coaching staffs that I talk to, like either, before or after games where we go places and everything. And there are coaches who will just be a little more honest sometimes than I want them to be with me about how, things are at their school. And, oh, and like, well, I can't get the girls coach to bend here with this kind of stuff. And like, they just don't want to listen to anything. And it's like, what I'm doing culturally is not what they're doing culturally. And it's such a hassle because kids are being told different things. And I tell them right away, I was like, man, like, I don't know what that's like right now because like, Coach Daniels and I really do support each other. And, if we get stopped in public and I get asked about the girls program, I mean, Vinny knows that he can trust that I'm going to say the right things that are supportive of him and vice versa. He's going to say things that are very supportive of me. And it's not just because we have each other's backs, but it's that we believe in the culture that we've created and what we're doing as a staff collectively.
Like in that Cedarburg game last year, we went to a diamond press and weren't forcing turnovers, but we just wanted to speed the game up. And I remember there was a couple of conversations like, why are they doing this? Or the press is getting broken. I'm like, well, they scored 4 points in 9 minutes, taking terrible shots and just sped up. Like that was the reason. You understood that because we've talked a ton. So it's almost like you're a filter to people because you just understand what we do so much. And likewise with you, I feel like the same way. So it's been really, really good. It's been really special.
Yeah, I think
is that connection something that is fostered within the athletic department in general, or is it just your relationship that has really, kind of produced that deep connection?
It's a hard question to answer. I think I would say, like any school, not everyone's always going to get along well. I think we have a lot that do. I do think that, like our baseball coach always does the scoreboard for our games. We talk before and after every game, gives you knocks. Like there's that, but I truly think that, like, if I ever went somewhere and got like a big time job, it's so close. Chris and I have been so like minded. In his interview, I remember we had a long talk about the 3 people that interviewed, and I can't go into too much detail because it's confidential. But like, I remember advocating really hard after the interview. Like, I listened to what he said, and even in that moment, I'm like, this is the best guy for that job. Some of the kids I don't think always felt that way right away because he came off very firm, which he does. And I remember telling him, like, do you want a friend or a coach? Do you actually want to get better, or do you want to have? And that, like, it stuck out to me so much. So I think in this case, it's 2 people who are just very like-minded and kind of hit it off right away for me, more than anything else. I don't know how you feel about that, Chris, but
yeah, for sure. I mean, it's super easy to work with somebody that has a lot of the same viewpoints as you. I mean, it really is. I mean, so me going into a place where it was my first head coaching job, it was really that made it a lot easier, especially with how things started for me too in year one. I mean, it was really nice to have that shoulder to lean on and be able to talk to somebody who kept me on the right path and understanding of like what I'm trying to build, type thing. And so that helped me a lot. And I'm not sure how that would have went with someone who would have been on the opposite side with the girls if it was someone who had been there for 25 years and established everything right. I mean, Vinny was 1 year into it already, and he was still working through all the same types of things. And it was very fresh in his mind. It was like, well, here's what I was doing. This might work for you too. And as far as like the school atmosphere, I think that we do have a pretty solid environment across the board when it comes to girls and boys coaches alike. I think there is a lot of support there, but like Vinny said, I mean, it's a tough answer it's a tough question to answer just simply because we don't always cross paths with every single coach in that building either for all sports.
Yeah, we talked to Coach Merg about this a couple weeks ago, just about the importance of that coaching community and having someone where you can either have their ear, they have your ear, they have that shoulder. So you guys being able to have that in-house is something that's pretty beneficial, to be completely honest, to each of you, especially when you get into the dregs of January, early February seasons, times like this.
When you have to remind kids you get to play, you get to be a part of this.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Coach, biggest reason we got you on today is we are going to talk about that mid-season girls seeding that came out. We wanted a girls coach perspective. Seemed like a great choice to have you on. And then hearing that you're just a big numbers geek seemed like an even better fit. So,
Trav, I'm going to that from, man.
You had mentioned it, but he had mentioned it too before we started recording. Trav, I'm going to let you hop in and just kind of steer this conversation, as you really did a lot of the work midweek this week to just point out some of the things that we saw that you saw with regards to everything going on.
Yeah, just for people that maybe didn't listen to last week or haven't followed, with great detail some of the changes for the playoffs this year. There were some tweaks to the playoff formula. First of all, they adjusted a few things here and there. But one of the things they did at the request of the coaches, who've kind of asked for it for a couple of years now, is this mid-season report where they put out a if the playoffs started today, right? Here's where the seeds would fall in each sectional. And that for the girls came out last week, and then for the boys will come out this coming Friday. And it's a chance to just kind of get an idea of where things fall. They hoped and thought it would increase kind of transparency around things and is less surprises at the end of the year. And it was requested by the coaches. Ultimately, I think if there's coaches that don't like their seating, they're not going to like it now the same as they didn't like it or don't like it at the end of the year. But it was an attempt to kind of listen to the request from the coaches. So the midseason report came out on Friday. We posted on Bound Wisconsin. People got a chance to see it. Coaches have now kind of had a weekend to digest it, and it's been interesting to see some of the responses and also see how the seeds played out. It's one of those things that people are always going to have something to disagree with, whatever seeding criteria, whatever formula, whatever you might use, right? Everybody's going to look at it from their vantage point and their perspective, and you're never going to make everybody happy. We talked about that before, but I guess our question for you, Vinny, is your first initial reaction to, I guess, first of all, where you fell within the midseason seedings as we look at it in your sectional in Division I, Sectional 2. Pewaukee is the number 1 seed. Appleton East is the number 2. You are the number 3. So looking at your sectional, first of all, what's your initial reaction? How do you think things kind of played out?
I think for me, I thought when I looked at our stuff, I thought Pewaukee, Appleton East would probably be 1 and 2. I was pretty set on that. I just didn't know maybe the order of the two that it would be. But that was kind of my thought. So I'm going to flat out say this is going to be an unpopular opinion. We talk about the things that's wrong, and there are some, I think, obviously glaring issues that are wrong, but there's not as many as we make it seem. There was a lot right, and I just want to make that kind of known. It doesn't, but the things that are wrong are so confusing, maybe, is why people talk about it a lot, because it's that's a huge head scratcher that humans never would have even come close to. I think that's where the frustration is. But for us, I think us as the 3 makes a ton of sense. I kind of said going into it, there's 4 teams in the sectional to me that kind of stand out in a tier, and those 4 teams were us, Nina included with that, Appleton East and Pewaukee. I think looking at the resumes, that's kind of how I thought it was going to shake out. I thought it was going to be Pewaukee, Appleton East, us, and Nina. Nina dropped to the 5, which I was very surprised by. But then you look at the record of Milwaukee King, and you kind of see, okay, at their record kind of stands out. My fear was the 6 losses we have with the strength of schedule. How is that going to balance with some of the other things that happen? And I've got a lot of other thoughts based on how the formula is that I had jotted down at some point too that are pretty maybe unique about things. But overall, I think the 3 makes sense for us. Now, my biggest fear is we play a 2-16 team on Friday. So if we win that, is that going to hurt? Are we going to actually drop? Because it's a win against a 2-16 team, strength of schedule mechanics with a conference team. So I think that's some of the stuff that I think it's that close with a couple of the teams in our area. So overall, I think a 3 makes sense. I'm glad that we still stayed up there with our strength of schedule and 6 losses, but I think there's definitely some things we'd have to ask questions about other parts of it.
Yeah, and one of the things to point out, there's not a number released with the seeds other than what your seed is. There's this team, it has a 0.864 and whatever. You don't know how close teams are. As you said, you don't know if you're really close to that dropping to a 4, for instance, if something happens, either a loss or your strength of schedule changes or whatever it might be. So we don't know what will change between now and the end of the season. There will be changes, obviously, because there's wins and losses for hundreds and hundreds of teams and thousands of games still to be played. So Things will change and fluctuate. But, one of the things that is interesting in your grouping, and you referred to it a little bit, and it's one of the eye openers that people look at, is Milwaukee King being a 4 seed in that group. At the time of the seedings being released on Friday, they were 14-1 was the record the WIAA had them for. They played almost a closed loop schedule in the Milwaukee City Conference. Very few games outside of the league. They played Brown Deer. They played Zion Benton from Illinois. Otherwise, I believe all of their games have been against Milwaukee City Conference teams. And that has been a huge point of contention for a long time since the computer seeding came out. It's not unique to girls basketball or boys basketball either. The same kind of problems and issues arise with Milwaukee City Conference teams in football and that formula as well, because it's really hard to any formula or any rating is only as good as the data that's available, number one. So, when you play a closed loop, there's not as many comparative data points that are available to compare teams at. And that was something. So full disclosure for people who don't know, I've been on the seeding committee previously for the WIAA, along with a number of other coaches that have taken part in that process. And that kind of closed loop scheduling has been a topic of conversation. How do you address it? What can we do? Or teams in the Milwaukee City Conference playing very few games in general. I mean,
I was
many of
just
them
going to say that, like not even playing a full schedule.
Yeah, they don't. Some of them are playing 16 games, and so it's tough to compare. But that is obviously one that people look at and say that doesn't seem right. Just as a point of comparison, so on Bound, we have a power index that a number of coaches have asked me about in the last couple of days. Because when you look at the power index and you look at the seedings, there are some discrepancies, some of them more glaring than others, but this is probably as big of a glaring discrepancy as you could find. In the WI seeding formula, Milwaukee King is 4th. In the Bound power index, they are 16th out of 18 teams as we sit here and talk on Sunday night. So there's obviously a big gap there. And for full clarity, our power index is not trying to mirror the same formula the WIA uses. It's completely different methodology. It's not apples to apples at all. It's an ELO ranking based in a chess, developed through a chess system to rank chess players that evaluates, who's more likely to win and creates ratings from there. So long story short, that is probably the most glaring one that people have talked about, and it falls in your sectional, Coach Daniels. So,
Yep.
I guess you talked about it a little bit, but thoughts on that, what to do about it, how you address it. Obviously, it's not like you can say, well, sorry, Milwaukee King, you can't be in the playoffs, or Milwaukee teams, you can't be in the playoffs. They have to be included and they have to be evaluated in some capacity. So thoughts on a way to do that effectively.
So, I love the question, because I think there's a ton of things that go on. I think you touched on stuff. You had different words for it. I called it ecosystems, where the good teams are playing in one ecosystem, or we're playing the Kimberleys and the whatever, and then the teams that are on that next tier maybe are scheduling up a little bit, but not. So like we kind of have like 4 or 5 different ecosystems that aren't cross-contaminating enough unless you play in conference play, is how I would say it. And that's creating some bans and challenges. So on your Bound rating, I think this goes back way further, and this maybe wasn't where you wanted to completely go, but I know for a fact that we had duplicate games, deleted games that weren't on the WI website. So like at some point I go back to the frustration. I said right away, so I know I'm on the Bound podcast, so I promise I'm not paid to say this, but like I was an advocate for at the beginning, the WBCA should go through Bound. Let's link WIA with Bound or something along those lines, so that we can get consistency across the board, not just in the seeding formula. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying, like, if we enter scores on Bound, can we have some sort of population where our 2 databases align for games being entered? I think that would be huge. But we didn't make a decision. Part of being a leader, and this is my frustration, I think the WBCA does a lot of really good things, but part of being a leader is sometimes making a decision that some people are going to be upset about. And I think they avoided the decision in that point, making this even more difficult than ever before by not picking one website. I know Chris probably feels the same way, not to speak for him on that, but I don't really know why we're doing that. I think one of the biggest issues with this is we scheduled Kimberly, we scheduled De Pere, we scheduled Notre Dame. We thought all three of those were going to be sectional games because they were all in our sectional last year. So sectional, so the 6 criteria of win-loss record against your sectional or your win percentage against your sectional, like we're in a Division I conference with only one other team in our conference, Homestead. So we play Homestead twice. We have 4 games total that are going to be on our thing for that 6 criteria. But if you're in the FRCC, there's a chance you have 10 to 12 because there's more Division I teams in our conference. So I think that creates challenges. And like, how am I supposed to schedule games against my sectional when I have absolutely no idea? Hartford gets moved a ton in every sport because we're on the outskirts of the Milwaukee area. We can kind of go west. We could go south. We could go north. You never really know where we're going to go. So I think that's the hard thing is like, how do you even do the 6th one when you don't know? And when your conference only has one Division I team, that creates challenges that are a little bit more like we're going to be probably 3-1. And we actually play Homestead, who's in our sectional. We play them after the seating formula comes out, which is another thing. Like, why not use all the data?
Yep.
Decrease variance by increasing sample size is the number one thing you're taught in statistics. And in all honesty, I feel like that'd be like the biggest thing I say. So I think the sectionals coming out late I would have scheduled King if I'd known they're intersectional. I would have definitely scheduled King. But how was I know? Like, I had no idea we were going to get them in our thing. And like, we win that game, awesome. We lose that game, hey, at least we know now. And it's not a knock on them because I want to be careful how we talk about it. 6 years ago, Milwaukee King had a team that was it 6, maybe 8 years ago. They had a team that was the number 1 team in the state and had a great chance of winning the state championship. Like, they've been really good. So I want to be careful how we talk about it. There have been unbelievably good city conference teams in girls basketball.
Yeah.
But this year it definitely looks different based on like what the scores we're seeing, comparison scores. I think it's worse in Division II. I'm really good friends with Matt D'Amato. I don't want to speak for him from Grafton, but Milwaukee Vincent lost a game by 88 to a team, and they're the one team and they're number 1 seed right now. That's odd too, over Beaver Dam and Grafton. I think Grafton's the 2, Beaver Dam's the 3. So I think knowing who our sectionals allows us to schedule it earlier, and how do you do that with the performance factor, moving teams up and down. I get the confusion part there, but we're already scheduling it. Chris and we've been scheduling for next year already, and we're trying to predict. So I think that's something we'd have to look at as something. But yeah, it's different. It's hard. It's really, really hard to fix. But I think that's where you would bring the human element in at the end as well, where we can look at things and decide like, hey, here's what we'd spit out. Let's talk. I think that'd probably be the best route, but I do love that they released them early because I think it got some of those surprises out, and I think that's a great step in the right direction.
I want to address kind of what you started that piece with, in case people did not see. I had posted on Friday. I don't know if it was before or after the seeds came out, but I was going through our data on Bound to audit, make sure that we were as accurate as we could possibly be, knowing that there's always things that get missed, slip by, whatever. So I was going through auditing our data versus what the WIAA had, going through essentially every conference standing, making sure that we matched up with what they had. In the course of doing that, I found a few games that we did not have, maybe a handful or maybe even 8 or 10, something like that. But what I've also found, unfortunately, was many games that the WIAA did not have, that they did not have a result for, they did not even have on their schedule. There was games that the score was flipped and reversed. There was games that were duplicated in their system. And to clarify for everybody out there, reporting of that information, that data comes from the schools. It is the school's responsibility to report that data to the WIAA, to report their schedule. So that's in the system, and then report their results. So the biggest component of it is schools have to, and athletic directors and coaches have to take the initiative to make sure things are correct. And they should be making sure things are correct throughout the season. It shouldn't be, I'm going to load all my results in, every couple of weeks. It should be in a timely fashion. And schools are supposed to, and you guys would know better than I would if they sent out a reminder. I believe they did send out a reminder to schools of make sure your data is in. We have to have this out. We want it to be correct, but people don't do it. And all told, and I did not track every single one, but just going by what I found, I'm pretty confident that there was at least 100, perhaps a couple hundred results that were not in the WIAA database correctly or not in at all. And so again, any formula, any whatever is only as good as the data available. Now, that's 100 or 200 games that could impact things. Certainly, there's been thousands of games have been played, so it's not like they're missing half the scores or anything like that. It's a very small percentage, but it does change and impact things. For instance, Notre Dame played Oostburg and lost to Oostburg, and that loss was not in the WIAA database at the time that the results were produced. I have not checked to see if they've got it in there now.
It's not.
But there's a lot of games. In some conferences, it's better. Some conferences, it was 100%. Everything matched up with what we had and what they had. But there were some conferences that had 8 to 10 games missing amongst all of the teams in that league. And the Milwaukee City Conference, unfortunately, was not very good at getting their results in. There's some Milwaukee City Conference teams that, at least the last time I had checked, only have 4 games on their entire schedule and as few as 2 or 3 results in. And they have certainly played more contests than that. There's also some issues with forfeits in the Milwaukee City Conference and if they should be counting or how they should be counting them. And I don't know if they've been filtered out. The long story short is, there's some information that was missing when this was done, and hopefully, those level of results are not missing when it is done at the end of the year.
So I think that brings up a conversation that we can have here now, where the data points, right? The missing data points, the incorrect data points, the just information that is required on the WIAA site by whether it's the coaches or the schools to have in and accurate. I'd like to have a conversation now on kind of the responsibility part and who, we're talking coaches and admins. They have the responsibility of getting it correct. WIAA, is it their responsibility to then go in and audit when it comes to putting out information like this mid-season seedings or their end of the year stuff?
Well, my question is if they want to run, and they were promoting, right? The WIAA is promoting this mid-season unofficial seeding, right? They promoted it because they sent out emails about it. They put it on social media. They're proud of it. You can tell they're proud of it, right? But how can you have a computer system if the information isn't accurate? And if people aren't going to put in their information in a timely manner or at all, well, where's the accountability piece? Because to be honest, it seems like there's a lot of accountability in a lot of other places, but all of a sudden at the top, there is no accountability. That's what frustrates me. Because if you're going to have something like this, yeah, Colton, the answer is yes. The information needs to be audited. It needs to be correct. I actually probably would have been okay with if they would have came out with an email and said there are too many games missing for us to put this out. I'd have been okay with it because then it tells me that they are legitimately caring about the product in which they're putting out. Right. And sometimes it's just I really struggle with a lot of things that the WIAA does. And I'm not saying they don't care, but I'm also saying that I'm not sure they do. I don't know. What is the big picture here? Well, the big picture is that this is supposed to be about kids and getting it right for the kids and competition. And are they putting the kids in the forefront here by holding other adults accountable? And we've had this conversation on the show already.
We have.
And accountability is a big piece.
Yeah.
So would you be supportive of an accountability piece, kind of going the other direction, right? If you don't have results in, this is what happens.
Yeah.
I don't know what it could be. There has to be a hammer or some kind of punishment or however you want to determine it.
Well, Travis, that's how life is. So what
would be fair? I think going back a few years, I want to say it used to be if you didn't attend the seed meeting, you lost the coaching box or something like that. Mm-hmm. Back in the day, what would be a fair determination if your results are not in or if you're missing a result? What happens?
I think when we talk about this, I'm going to hop in before Chris or Vinny hop in. Remember, we were also talking about impacting kids, student athletes. So I think that if I were to be a proponent of any sort of hammer coming down, it needs to come down on the adults in the room. It needs to come down on whether it's a coaching suspension, a loss of box, something with admin, where it doesn't necessarily affect the kids that have, they have all the stake in it, but they have no say in it.
Yeah, I'm 100% with that. I think that that accountability piece needs to be trickled down, right? Where, you talked about it, that if the coaches aren't doing it, which we're very lucky at Hartford, having such a proactive athletic director when it comes to stuff like that. Do I, because I have my own like just trust issues, I guess, with just life in general, do I go and double check to make sure that stuff's right? Yes, I do. Okay, but
Does our AD schedule a meeting with us to verify the result before the day? Absolutely.
Yes, he does.
Yes,
Yep.
He does it every single time. Like, he's the most organized guy I've ever met in my life.
Yeah, but I really for me, like, I work really hard, and like I care about what people think of like the job that I do, and I want to make sure that I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to be doing in my position, right? Because I got hired to do a job, so I want to do my job to the fullest of my ability, and I just don't understand why more people in the world don't think that way. It's just really odd to me. And I do think that there should be some sort of administrative discipline for those scores not being put in properly.
I think from my standpoint, what I would say right now is it'll be really interesting because now we have a week and the boys ones come out this coming week, correct?
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see if there's a learning curve to this. Like, this is the first time we've done the mid-season report. So will the boys one be significantly more accurate now because of the attention drawn to this one to make sure that things are done correctly? And if so, I think it'd be a great opportunity then to come out with the first one we know for the girls weren't great. So as a result, we're going to attempt to rectify all those errors over the course of the week, get on people about doing it, and then could we come out with the updated, more correct version with the boys this coming week, I think would be a very fair thing to do. So I do think the boys one will be more accurate as a result of it. But about follow through, like Chris and I can attest to this, like we're both a part of the same conference. Like when you don't have so bylaws aren't bylaws when there's nothing holding people accountable. Then it's a recommendation or a guideline. And we're dealing with this at times in our conference. It's very rare, but it's often the same people where like our conference requires stats on bounds, film in the huddle pool, rosters online within 24 to 48 hours of your game. And these are the stats we require. This is Bound. We picked Bound as our website. So everyone's aware of it. What happens when the school doesn't do it besides us sending 14 emails back and forth in our conference email chain about someone hasn't done it, but there's no punishment. Like,
because that happens.
And it happens all the time. And the AD, if they don't want to do anything about it, then the coach doesn't even get punished. And it's just an email chain. I know the Trailways, I think it is, has the loss of coaches box if you haven't followed through on your coach responsibilities by a certain amount of time after a game, which I'm totally okay with. I'm okay if it's not even free throws in the ball. Like, it's just loss of coaches box. I think that would send a message a little bit about getting that stuff done. But we right now do have guidelines, not bylaws. And unfortunately, in the world we live in today, I think people are always going to take advantage of that. I just think that's how the world works now. And then you've got the people like me, Chris, and our athletic director that are so over the top the other way that we just can't understand how that's even possible. It's actually kind of weird to us what's happening.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I have a question too. Then by the end of the year, right? And just because my eyes have been opened up even more now. Like, obviously, I know that there are things that maybe slip through the cracks every once in a while, and like that stuff happens, right? But my question is now at the end of the year with this computer system, if teams aren't putting in their final results, right, and then all of a sudden a seed gets spit out, right? Like, there's nothing that occurs at the end of the season. Does that get looked at all, Travis? You would know better than I would.
I don't know that they have a mechanism, and I was going to mention this. I don't know that they have a mechanism in place to do the kinds of things that we're talking about within the Constitution and within the powers that are given to them by the schools. I don't know that they have. I know in some states there's monetary fines that schools can get for certain violations or different things like that. I don't know what mechanisms are in place for the WIAA to levy penalties. Again, that has to be granted by the schools. So in terms of what happens if there's mistakes, unfortunately, we've seen it before.
Yeah.
We saw it, I think it was last year, a team was left out completely of the brackets that they were putting together, and they had to redo it. We saw in football a couple years ago, 2 teams made the playoffs and 2 were left out. That was done incorrectly. So
How does that happen?
Unfortunately,
Sorry.
it has happened. Hopefully there's mechanisms in place to prevent it and limit any of that kind of thing. But ultimately, I don't know. I wish I had a better answer. You mentioned earlier, we would love to work with and partner with and help in any way that we could. If there's any support that we can provide that will make that process better for anybody and everybody, we're certainly open and willing to do it, because we follow this daily. Like we know and stay on top of where potential issues could lie, right? If it's this game happened and there's a dispute about whatever, or sometimes happens there's a dispute about whether it's a forfeit or a cancellation, or there's a game that nobody seems to know about, or whatever it might be, we would be certainly happy to help in any way to use our expertise and knowledge and whatever to make things easier and better. And we'll see if we get to that point. We would love to. I'll put in a shameless plug for Bound. We would love to be the resource that everybody uses and it has consistent and transparent for everybody. That you can find your results, you can find stats, you can find everything that you need to, and that's the place to go. Obviously, we did that for many years at WSN. There was no official, tie to what the WIAA was doing. There was no requirement of whatever, but we would be happy to do that and have everybody be able to share in the same information. Conferences, media, WIAA, schools, everybody. So that's been our goal for 25 years.
I think if you looked at coaches right now, like again on the Bound podcast, but I think if you look at what Bound has spit out for Power Index in Division I, I think it's pretty easy to argue that a lot of people would look at the sectional results of what your formula has gotten out with the ELO thing and say that it's probably right now more accurate than what we have with the WIAA. And I think that's something that I think is like, and that, I even have some frustrations. Like, I think I get it. You can lose to it. You can beat a team and still end up behind them. Like we beat Notre Dame, but we're 2 spots behind them. To Pure beat us, but we're 1 spot ahead of them. But I think also in both those games, it's 2 teams that could beat each other on any given night. So like, I think that's part of my frustration is like your ELO thing does, like it's the only one. And this is me being biased. So it still has us as a top 10 team in Division I. Because it takes the most coaches, and this is why we got rid of seeding meetings. Most coaches just look at win-loss record and go in order of that. Because there was the same gripes about what we did when it was sectionals and we voted. I was in a meeting, flat out will tell you, Chris knows the guy that I'm talking about better than probably anybody, who flat out told me in a seeding meeting that he did not vote for our team ahead because he saw where he was and knew that he'd rather play the other team. So he voted that way. So like, it was not perfect before.
No,
it was not. So like from my standpoint, like I actually give your Bound one credit because I think it cuts through the, you're 12-6. This team is 13-4. They should be ahead of you, but like who have they played? And that's what I love about your formula. Why I think it's actually one of the better ones. Like I've been following it all year. And I actually feel like it's one of the most accurate ones I've ever seen. And I am not a Bound, like, I think you guys realize this, like Chris will tell you, if I don't like something, I'll tell you straight up. I don't really do affiliations with things that much.
Yeah.
So it's not because I'm on this podcast, but like I would tell the people from every other one, I still think yours is better. And it does a better job. So I think there's got to be some sort of collaboration or look into maybe what's going on. I think and this is where we could take the conversation at some point up to you guys. But sometimes I think when we have feedback to entities, they have so much pride in what they did that they forget that they want it to be great. We want it to be great. The kids deserve it to be great. We're trying to help, not criticize sometimes, and trust that we're just trying to make it better. And I don't know if it always feels that way when we go up. I think we could probably also say it better.
Well, you use the word collaboration, right? And Travis, you mentioned a little bit too. I think earlier when the computer system, like using it to a point is great, right? But then all of a sudden, like why not bring in that human element at the end and like let's just double check to make sure this looks good. Like let's see if there are any discrepancies that really throw us off here with certain things, right? Like Have I been a part of some really great seating meetings where it's been very, very well done? Yes, I have been. I had the privilege of being able to go to a lot of them as an assistant too, and I've seen some really good ones, but I've also seen some where like there have been literal fights almost breaking out in them.
So
So
to continue that conversation, right? The computer seedings come out, and you want a human element at the end. How do you quantify that? How do you quantify then who is in charge of looking at that data? How that data might then be affected? How does that process look then on the back end in your mind, in Coach Daniels' mind, Trav, if you have an opinion there?
Well, you used to be able to appeal up, even in the non-computer version, where you could always at the end appeal up and say, hey, I think that looking at this, we got the 3, I think we're the 2, and it went to a vote. Now the vote didn't usually do a whole lot because the people already decided, but I think on a computer vote, I think you would see some things get fixed. Like I think if you took that Division 2 one, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I don't think Milwaukee Vincent would be the one anymore if you put that up to the coaches' votes. I think that would get fixed very quickly. So I think it will. I think we'd actually take care of the big, obvious, the big fish ones, if you will.
Well, and that's what you're looking to do.
Yeah.
You're looking to like take the big ones out of there and correct it, right? Like obviously in the middle, there are always going to be, different, like there's going to be different opinions when it comes to some of that stuff, right? But I just feel like they're a combination thereof, right? Not letting a computer decide everything for humans is not the best outcome.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't get paid the big bucks to do that, to come up with those ideas, right? But like if you put me in a room and you have me talking to a group of people and how we could figure that out, right? Well, who's the group of people that's going to figure that out, right? And then once they do figure it out, well, then you have to be like, okay, well, just be transparent with things.
Yeah.
Just be transparent.
Yeah. I think if we go for it, Travis, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, again, full disclosure, I have been on the seating committee since it started at the very beginning. I'm no longer on the seating committee due to some changes this year, but there was a number of other coaches. There was 4 to 5 coaches the first couple of years. I think there were 6 to 7 coaches that were on that committee the last couple of years. We talked significantly about, do you do some kind of human element, right? Because a lot of coaches have said that. And so then there's a few questions. Number one, what does that look like? How do you do it? Because ultimately, I think if you just open it up to anything, it would be almost everybody would be appealing, right? And then you might as well just go back to doing a seating meeting at that point. There's been suggestions at different times of some kind of a committee, a small group committee, looking at what the computer has and trying to manually or using human input adjust what the computer has as an output. And ultimately, a lot of that lies with outliers. To me, the Milwaukee City Conference stuff we're talking about is outliers. We talked about that significantly every time we met of how do you address the human concern, or do you have that in play, and also how do you address some of the outlier situations? And it became hard to find a good solution forward for that. Ultimately, the route that we chose to take while I was on the committee was, let's try to make make the process, the computer seating better, rather than bring back in the human element that could just muddy everything right back up to where it used to be. I think we all know, and I think most people would know the glaring issues that we are talking about in how, in those glaring situations. But like you said, there's ones where I got a 5 and I feel like I should be a 4, but the 4 obviously feels like they should be there. So it's just going to be an argument and a difference of opinion back and forth. And both of you might be right, but ultimately only one person can get that seed. So finding a path forward for that, we made a number of tweaks over the years to try to improve the formula. Anytime you change something, you have to be careful of unintended consequences as well. Like if you do something to address the MPS situation, maybe it is looking at, the number of games that they've played and having some kind of adjustment if they haven't met a certain games threshold or whatever it might be.
Right, because we're looking at Milwaukee King and they've played 17 games and they only have 2 more on their schedule.
Yeah. So, is there things with that? The other thing I will tell you, and I think Coach Daniels, you mentioned that there was some head-to-head play in your sectional. Head-to-head is part of the process. I don't know, and I should ask, because in the final evaluation, there is head-to-head that is looked at if it is within a certain margin, right? And I don't 100% know if they applied that in these mid-season grades yet, or if they have not applied that yet. Because again, we don't know what the difference in the ratings are. Like, it could be such a big gap that head-to-head doesn't come into play. So that's the other thing I will add.
I don't want to speak for Vinny, but I think also when you were talking about the head-to-head earlier, you were discussing how, you're looking to get your schedules out for next year, but you don't know who's in your sectional already. So, I mean, you're trying to schedule those head-to-heads to get those data points, and right now coaches and ADs aren't able to properly do that.
We have a really small sample size of 4 games against our sectional. We went 3-1, luckily, in those 4 games, which is probably great for us. But like 2-2 to 3-1, like that's a huge change in a small sample size. That, like, you could just be like last year, for instance, Homestead was in our conference, is still, obviously, and had we lost both games to Homestead because they're a power at the time, granted we split with them, that would have been a huge impact. So like you kind of stuck at the whim of like how lucky you are conference wise right now. I think on that it's not head to head, it's wins against the sectionals. It's the 6th criteria listed in the formula right now.
I don't know that that's in there.
It's, according to the WIAA website, it's on there. And that's another thing, is if it's on the WIAA website, that's concerning because they haven't updated it then if it's not.
So on the seeding procedures, they list opponents' winning percentage, opponents' winning percentage, defeated opponents' winning percentage, and defeated opponents' winning percentage. Head-to-head will be reviewed for all consecutive seeds. When a statistical tie occurs among 3 or more teams, head-to-head will be reviewed among all the statistically tied teams. It does not reference specifically that I see the sectional piece.
So there is and I'd have to find it. So, and I went through this. So this is where, again, there is a place on the website, because I sent my weekly parent square message out, where I copied the criteria from a page on the website that had that as the 6th one. So that's where my fear is like, okay, so if it's not a part of it, in one spot it is part of it on the website, now you just haven't updated your website.
Yeah.
Which happens to every business organization across the world, but like that's a huge miss. I'm going to try to find it actually while we're talking, keep talking. But.
Well, and I think, and I've told Vinny this before too, is that, this is going to open up a whole nother can of worms probably, but I mean, let's just seed the state and like do it that way. Right. And like, because if we're going to sit here and talk about demographics and where everybody is on the map, right, and like how much travel it is, well, then we need to look at some things that have happened in the last couple of years and the amount of travel that's occurred. That can't be the number one thing that they continue to like rest upon. Like, well, we don't want people to have to travel across the state for their first game, and it's like, well, it happens anyways. And I think that you could. Yeah, go ahead.
I've been in those meetings where the superintendents are the ones that ultimately, we have to remember, superintendents are on the board of control and the ones that ultimately make those final decisions.
The people that don't have anything to do with athletics.
I understand. I'm just saying, I've been at those meetings and seen those conversations, and superintendents are scared to death of budgets and costs and transportation and all those things. It's a conversation at almost every board of control meeting I've gone to. Anytime this kind of thing, this has been brought up in almost every sport
I believe it.
Of changing the way that sectionals are grouped, or increasing the size, or seeding half the state, or a full sectional, whatever it might be. It's brought up in almost every sport, and that is constantly what the feedback is at the superintendent level. And that goes to kind of the rulemaking process in the WIAA, right? There's different levels.
It just goes to the point where like people who are at the top don't actually listen to the people who are in the trenches, quote unquote, right? I mean, the people who are doing all the work, not saying that the people at the top don't do work. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying, but the people that are in the middle of said activities have zero say in anything when it comes to decisions. How is that a thing? Like, how has our world become that?
I don't know that they have zero say. I mean, the coach's advisory, any rule essentially comes through the coach's advisory. So they have to, I mean, it gets proposed at that level and supported and not supported, whatever it might be. But final authority does rest at the superintendent level because the WIAA is a organization of schools, and at the top of the schools is a superintendent. And obviously that's not just a WIAA organizational thing, that's a school thing as well, right? Where coaches or athletic department has requests or would like things that the school, either the superintendent or the school board, doesn't approve or support. And so there's always that dynamic of the people involved looking at it differently than the people that make the final decision.
I mean, I've been a part of school districts too, where like the superintendents have been great, and where they will come and straight up ask the athletic director, "Hey, can you go and ask your coaches what they prefer in this situation? Because that's where I want to go." And then I've been a part of other districts where the superintendent just makes the decision.
I think and again, I think that we could have a whole conversation strictly on playoff seeding, like instead of just this mid-season that we're looking at. I think that this is an off-season topic that we've talked about. There's this one, there's the shot clock, there's other stuff that we're going to have really bigger conversations with regards to. You said seed the whole state. I would meet in the middle and say reseed after regionals.
I'll tell you, seeding the whole state will never happen. So like there has to be something between that, because that's a zero sum option.
Well, you could just make sure that the top teams, right, that are whether it's your computer system or whatever you decide it is, right? Like you could go, whether it's like, all right, we're going to seed the top 4 seeds in the bracket and go across that way, and then we're going to try to figure everything out demographically from there, the best that we can.
And that's essentially very similar to what the football coaches were able to propose and pass for their new playoff system that was implemented this year for the first time, which was you get your top 4 overall seeds, and those are your ones. You get your next 4 overall seeds, and those are your 2s.
It's almost like it makes sense.
And that caught a lot of attention from coaches in other sports. And honestly, that was a fear of the WIAA. And one of the reasons that it really was kind of neck and neck whether that football proposal was going to pass, because they were afraid that other coaches associations or other coaches groups or other sports would see that and want that, and that it would turn into everybody doing that.
It would sure help getting the best teams to the state tournament, wouldn't it?
There's other ideas, right? There's people that have proposed seeding or not drawing sectionals until this point, until the end of July or end of January, and trying to break up those teams at that point. So you still have time to scout and prepare and know who's in your sectional and that kind of thing. I mean, you guys were talking about not knowing who's in your sectional for next year and the challenges that come with that. Well, just would it be better, or would you be supportive of not knowing who's in your sectional until January 30th?
I'd be probably more supportive of that, assuming that we got I think what Chris and I would probably land on is getting the best teams to the state tournament being a priority. I think that's where I would land. And that if what we're doing tries to get the best teams every single year to the state tournament, I'm all on board. I think if you look at our 4 girls basketball sectionals right now, last year we were in the sectional death. I don't care what people say. I could go on forever about it. Us, Kimberly, Pewaukee at the top. Notre Dame was like a 7 seed, which is crazy because they were like, that's just how it worked. We played Homestead in the second round of a regional final in a 4-5 battle. No, sorry, a 3-6 battle, I think it was. Like Homestead was the 6 seed. Like, I don't know. And we lose by 1 to Kimberly. Then they beat Pewaukee in overtime, and then Kimberly goes and beats both teams by 20 plus at the state tournament. Like this year, that sectional is the Northwest one. That sectional has Hortonville right now as a 9, I'm pretty sure. Hortonville is a really good team. Hortonville would be fighting for the 4 seed in ours. Or the 3 seed, depending on how their game goes against us in 2 weeks, because we play them too, because of course we do. And I look at it and say, we're not consistently getting the best teams in the state tournament. Like, I think this year you're going to get 4 really good teams because Tosa East is in the 1 South, and Tosa East is really good. Arrowhead likely comes out of 1, and ours you're going to get one of the top 4, and up north you're going to get someone great. But is it the 4 best teams is the question I would ask. And I don't feel like that's a priority. And I think we've heard repeatedly that it's not a priority. That's across every sport. as a girls golf coach, I could tell you the same thing. When I was a girls tennis coach, I could tell you the same thing. Like, I think that's the frustration coaches have, is the state tournament is supposed to be the best, and it's supposed to showcase the best. And like, it'd been nice to see McKenna Christian twice at the state tournament for growing the game for young girls. It'd been nice to see the Terrians there to grow the game for younger girls who get excited about seeing people that they've heard about and seen. And I just feel like we're not growing the game that way because we're respectfully doing what's easy. And I disagree with you, but respectfully, because I get where you're coming from, Travis. But like, when people say that's just a non-discussion or a non-go, like, why not? Like, why aren't we opening that can of worms? Why are we closed off to something that actually could be great? And it's not you. You're saying, you're arguing on behalf of WIAA there. So I know what you're saying. I'm not saying you're disagreeing with it necessarily.
Well, I don't argue on behalf of the WIAA. Let's not throw that out there.
My bad. That one's on me. Sorry. Well, you get what I'm saying. You're explaining like what you've seen in those meetings and what you've heard, not necessarily what you believe is what I'm saying.
Vinny just came at you like someone on Twitter. You WIAA troll, chill.
Yeah. And I think that's a challenge though. Like I think we need to be more open to things in general. And I think it's frustrating. It's frustrating when and Chris and I talk a lot about this, which is my classic phrase today. But like, we're in communities that are like the pressure we had on us last year to go to the state tournament. And we're doing everything we can to support officials. We're doing everything we can to support the WIAA. But it just feels like when this is the solution, it's the pressure on the coaches who have to answer to the communities when you lose a game. And it's the pressure on the kids who this is actually all about. Because I've heard the argument, we haven't talked much about it, but why aren't those last two games on the seating? Well, teams have to get ready to play. We have to make sure we get officials. Like, be proactive and understand you might be in one of those play-in games on Tuesday and have it set up just in case. If it's what's best for kids, that's what we should be doing. And it's honestly, I hate saying it, but if it's what's best for coaches second, I still think we need to be the second most important part of that process, because it's our careers as teachers and coaches in cities. And I think that's really, really hard. And I think that's my fear on this, is like, we make a lot of decisions for adults by adults that aren't the main part of this process at all. And they're a huge part of it, but they're not the main thing. The kids are the main thing. The coaches are the main thing. The officials will go where they need to go and do a great job when they're asked to do it. But that's my fear. And I think I could go on forever about that, but that's a whole nother can of worms. I'm totally over last year. It's okay. I'm not. But yeah.
I think the idea of the playoff seeding and everything like that, everything that entails is this, what happened on Friday, right? And what will happen this upcoming Friday. They are now pushing that conversation onto February 1st as opposed to in a month. We're going to have the conversation again in a month.
I think releasing this early is a great idea. And I also think a lot of what they did is really good. But if you want to be as transparent as you possibly can be, what's the number of each team's? Because I think that would make this more transparent. And then just, I don't know, releasing additional information about why maybe it's not accurate or correct. I think that would be the next two steps. I think the increased transparency is good, but we still don't know how close it is. We don't know how close the numbers are, and we don't know which ones might be wrong. So I think that's the challenge of all this.
Anything else you guys want to add here before we let Coach Daniels go?
No, I think this is a great first step in having a conversation about something that's really important to not only just the four of us sitting here, but to the sport of high school basketball in Wisconsin, and how we can continue to make it better on a daily basis.
Agreed.
Well, Coach, we got plenty of clips out of this too, so our social is going to run wild. We're going to get so much hate and not hate, but so many comments that are directed at the WIAA in our comments, so we're going to clip out and send out. Trav's going to get yelled at so much. It's going to be great.
I even got a mustache for this, so like, I really took it serious today. So.
Well, Coach, we appreciate your time. Good luck the rest of the season, and I'm sure I will do my darndest not to call Chris Vinny the rest of this school year.
Appreciate it, and in all honesty, I appreciate you guys having me on, Chris. I love you. As always, it's how we close every time we talk to each other. And I just appreciate everything you guys are doing. So thanks for having me on. It's a good conversation, so I appreciate it.
Thanks, Coach. Right from that interview with Coach Daniels, guys, I mean, we could sit and talk about seeding. We could sit and talk about playoff structure, playoff everything. And that's something, honestly, that we're going to, if not take one episode, if not multiple episodes, talking about postseason when we can touch on bigger subjects like that.
Yeah, it was great to have him on and be able to speak about some really important topics going on right now, especially, a couple days removed from those unofficial seedings that came out. There's a lot of opinions on it, and I don't know if anybody is 100% right or 100% wrong, but I think that things are at least continuing to move in a direction that I think people want it to, right? But at the same time, still a lot of work to be done, and hopefully that continues.
Yeah. Things like that create a lot of conversation. Some of it is just noise. As both of you know, being on the social medias and just being in conversations in general, right? A lot of that is just noise, but there are good conversations. And I think that we just took part in a really good conversation with Coach Daniels about it. Before we hop into our preview, producer of the baseline, aka me, do me a favor, zoom in, dim the lights. This is a segment that I'd like to call a PSA. This is a public service announcement. And this one goes out to the parents that sit right underneath the streaming video cameras, the huddle cameras, the NFHS cameras. And it's specifically those ones that are the loudest. Because if you're the loudest, we can hear you. You're heard. We can hear you on the court, but we can also hear you every single time that we go in and watch film. We can at any time there's scout. So no, that was not an over the back foul because there's no such thing. That might have been a travel, but you couldn't see it from your vantage point. So my suggestion and my PSA to those parents that are the loudest and it's sometimes the most abrasive, find a new spot to sit. Please. Find a new spot to sit in the bleachers.
I gotta say, I have a perfect example of that, and I love the guy to death. He's one of my favorite parents that I've had the luxury of dealing with through my time here at Hartford. And Zach Herman, his dad Mark. Zach, one of the best players to come out of Hartford, right? Especially from a scoring standpoint, he's number 2 all time at the school. But his dad Mark is a great guy, but he's a very loud guy, and he was very invested in the games. We would give him crap all the time throughout Zach's tenure at Hartford, and he loved it. He was great with it, and he's like, at least everybody will know my opinion forever. And I was like, yeah, man, it's awesome. I love it. But it's funny too because my father-in-law comes every game and pretty much sits right in that same spot too, right next to him. And my father-in-law couldn't be quieter. And then there was always him, but they got along really great. It was fantastic, and I could hear some of that stuff sometimes on film, and I loved it when I was watching it back. But yeah, Mark's a great guy. So I'm not talking smack about him by any means, but it made me chuckle right away when you started bringing it up because it reminded me of that immediately.
Thankfully our huddle camera is underneath the away parents, so we don't necessarily have that issue in Richland Center, but there is a conference team where there is a very loud father, and he has a very raw voice, like the very tonal voice, and oh boy. Trav, any comment on that? Is that you in the stands?
No. I say almost nothing. Literally, ask my wife. When I watch a game that my kids play, it is as a parent, it's so you want to say stuff, right? You want to tell them what they need to be doing, and you want to at times be yelling at the refs, and you want to be thinking that you know what the team should be doing and the coach, and it's hard to prevent from doing that. The easiest way I found is don't say anything.
Yeah.
I don't say anything when my kid scores. I don't say anything when my kid fouls. I don't say anything when my kid does anything. I am the quietest person in the stands because otherwise I would talk way too much. So that might surprise you. That might surprise some people. When I coach, I'm not like that, right? But when I watch, I have found that the best way to control myself is to say literally nothing. I don't react. If I do, it's very, very, very rare.
Yeah, it's a good tactic to.
There's
Employ.
something relaxing for me when I get to sit in the bleachers and watch games that
Just
I
watch.
don't really ever I don't say anything. Like I go and watch our girls games whenever I'm able to, and I just sit there and hang out and watch the game and take it in.
It's
awesome to do that when your kid's playing, it becomes harder.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. Right now, the only experience I have right now is I'm coaching my daughter every game that she's playing in, so it's a little different that way. But
and that has been an adjustment. I coached both my kids in youth basketball and in youth football and baseball all the way through. I mean, every single season. So when you do that and then you go to sitting and watching, it can be hard.
And that adjustment isn't necessarily made by some parents very well. So
no, a lot of times it's the youth coach, the dad youth coach that is the loudest.
Correct. In the stands and then behind those closed doors. Yeah. Let's go right into our preview. We're going to start on the boys' side, Chris. Like weeks past, I'm just going to go kind of down the list. You then tell me which ones speak out to you the most. Monday, we got a couple of really good non-conference games in the lower divisions. Bonduel at Kiwani. Those are both ranked teams in Division 4 that are going to go at it. And then in Marathon, who we talked to in the review about how they had already clinched conference title. They are heading to Columbus Catholic for another really good non-con game. On Tuesday, Port Washington at Kettle Moraine Lutheran. That's two of the top teams in the New Glacier Trails Conference. So KML gets a win there. That evens up the standings. Non-con game on Tuesday, Mosinee and Seymour, both ranked in D3. Seymour is one of our remaining undefeated teams left in the state on the boys' side. Whitefish Bay has Tosa West on Tuesday. Xavier is heading to Lomira. Two other really good non-con games. Verona and Madison Memorial. This is a big one in the Big 8 as, there's three teams really jockeying for position at the top, and these are two of them. So this one could determine a lot going forward with regards to that end-of-the-year standings. And then Thursday, we talked about the Greater Metro Madness last week. The four top teams that are within one game of each other all are playing against each other on Thursday. Tosa West is at Brook Central. Germantown is at Brook East. In the Scenic Bluffs, Hillsborough and Royal, two of the top teams, are headed and squared off against one another. Thursday, we've also got a big couple games on the west side of the state. In the Mississippi Valley Conference, La Crosse Central and Onalaska will do battle. I think they both now have one league loss, so that one could very well determine, the final outcome in the standings if there's no hiccup along the way, though we have seen a lot of those teams in that league play the top teams really, really well. GET and West Salem, the two top teams in the Cooley, will square off on Thursday. Your neck of the woods there, Chris, we got Slinger at Whitefish Bay on Thursday, a really good matchup between two ranked teams in D2 and in the North Shore. And then one to point out is Marshfield at DC Everest later this week. Marshfield I can't remember what the exact number is, but they have won a lot of consecutive games in the Wisconsin Valley. Everest has a chance to spoil that and then even up the standings in that WBC. So interesting matchup there. And then Saturday, it's the Wisconsin-Minnesota border battle at Hamline University, which has a lot of really, really good games.
It's been a struggle for the Wisconsin teams in that event the last few years. We got to talk to Mark about getting some better, more favorable matchups.
Yeah, we gotta get that taken care of. I get some grief. We have some family that lives in the Twin Cities, and they always keep an eye on that stuff and let me know at our annual golf trip that Minnesota has been owning Wisconsin as of late. So yeah, we got to take care of that.
Yeah. How did the Wisconsin Illinois border battle go last weekend? Did you see the final tally on that?
Final tally, no, but I'm fairly certain Wisconsin came out on top. By how many, I will check right now as Chris kind of goes through what he saw is some of the best games this week within what we just talked about.
Yeah, well, right away, I mean, Port Washington KML is a huge game, right? Like, honestly, I mean, if Port Washington gets through that game on Tuesday, on the road against KML, they not only win their conference, but I'm not sure that they lose another regular season game. They're a tough nosed team, and they play the right way. They kicked our butt pretty handily earlier this year, but and they've also handed Slinger a loss. So like that team is capable of winning some big time games. I also love the Mosinee and Seymour game, right? Seymour's still undefeated. Seeing them challenged and tested here is something that's probably going to be good TV to watch. And always a Big 8, right? Verona, Madison Memorial. That'll be a good one. That's always a really good game when both teams are playing at the traditional caliber, right? That they usually do. And Slinger Whitefish Bay, that's going to be a great one. Not just because they're in the North Shore, like both those teams are tied at the top of the North Shore with one loss, but Slinger won on a buzzer beater earlier in the year. That's how that game was decided. In a game where Whitefish Bay was winning most of the entire contest. So a lot of good games across Central and on Alaska. That's a huge rivalry, right? And I'm sure that's gonna be a packed house on a Thursday night.
Did just double check 4-4, so not a win but a tie. Trav, we got 3 weeks left in the girls basketball season. Let's preview this third to last one.
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier. Wisconsin Dells, undefeated, have not played a great schedule. If you look at who they've played to this point, especially looking at the bound power index, I mean, it's teams in the 400s, 300s. They've had 2 15-point games. That's the closest they've played. Their average margin of victory is almost 42 points a game.
Oh, wow.
They beat Nakusa 91-5 last week. But they get challenged this week, and it starts on Monday as they will take on Winneconne in a good non-conference game. That'll be a real good measuring stick for that Wisconsin Dells team because Winneconne is an excellent team that plays very good competition. They've played a good non-conference schedule as well. So we'll learn a little bit more about that Dells team in that one. And later in the week, in fact, on Saturday, Wisconsin Dells plays La Crosse Central. Now, La Crosse Central at one point was undefeated just a few weeks ago. They've lost 4 of their last 5. But again, still going to be a much tougher test for Wisconsin Dells than what they've gotten quite often to this point. Also on Monday, a good non-conference game, Laconia and Edgewood. We've seen both those teams at the state tournament a number of times, of course. Tuesday, a real busy night. We get Whitefish Bay and Pewaukee. We get a couple big week in the FVA, and including Tuesday, Kimberly at Appleton North, and then Milton at Wanakee in a Key Badger large game. Wanakee is out ahead in that league. I believe they're 12-0 in conference. I should probably double check that. And I think they are maybe 2 games clear of anybody else. So if anybody's going to catch them, this is the kind of game that Milton's got to win to put that in the realm of possibility. So, Wanakee's 10-0, Beaver Dam is 7-2. So they have a 2.5 game lead in that league. But Milton, Monona Grove, kind of hanging around in there as well. On Thursday, Pewaukee, I mentioned they have a big game Tuesday against Whitefish Bay. Thursday, they travel to Pius. Also get Bayport and De Pere. And then a big one up there in the Clover Belt, Regis and McDonald Central. We talked about that one earlier this year. McDonald Central beat Regis 55-40. And of course, there's kind of that dynamic of the Cooper family being at McDonald Central for a number of years. Don was the coach there when they made it to state just a few years ago. And Ella May is a key player there, and again, kind of familial ties that went from McDonald Central to Regis. So
that Clover Belt Conference is just loaded when it comes to girls and boys on both sides. You have Neilsville, Columbus Catholic and Owen Withy in the East, and in the West you have McDonald, Regis, like
I mean, that's always been one of the best
Fall
D4,
Creek. Like that's
D5.
good.
There's a couple of D3 teams in there, but small school conferences, the Clover Belt has always been outstanding in both boys and girls basketball. Very proud history there. Like you said, Fall Creek, Altoona, Regis. Then you go to the
Altoona's
other
middle
side.
border now.
Yeah, Neilsville and some of those teams. So a great history in the Clover Belt. Friday, a couple big ones in the FVA. Again, kind of battling for position at the top, as Coach Daniels talked about in his sectional alone. You know, there's some really good teams. Nina, who's the 5 seed, they're gonna travel to Appleton East on Friday. Appleton North goes to Hortonville. And then you guys talked about the Big 8 on the girls or on the boys' side, also a big one on the girls' side, Madison Memorial and Verona. And then a huge one on Saturday. Kimberly follows a tough game earlier in the week at Appleton North. Saturday, they go to Arrowhead in one of those marquee non-conference matchups, again, where all those top teams are just kind of playing round robins. Kimberly and Arrowhead and Tulsa East have all played each other, and Notre Dame and Hartford and have just taken turns playing each other. So another big one on Saturday in a non-conference game.
It's the best way to put it, though. It's just a giant round robin tournament going on because
Yeah.
they're all playing each other.
It is. It's awesome to see.
Mm-hmm.
As always, we will have the streaming links up for 95% of these games that you can catch out throughout the state. So if you're hearing this on a Thursday and you're wanting to know, where can I catch that game? Head over to, boundwisconsin.com, get to that girls or boys score pages, game pages, and they give you, we got all the streaming links there. We also, one thing that I think gets overlooked with regards to, not to tout just Bound, but they do there's a game preview page that I really like that compares numbers a lot and, has, last fives listed, your stat leaders and whatnot. So gives kind of a little snapshot of each game, which I like as just a numbers freak and seeing stuff visually in front of me.
Our buddy Jack Kearns did a video on a new that coach view piece that is available for before the game is played. That has just a real nice formatted look at some key statistics and things like that. And then after the game, a real nice formatted kind of not recap, but the box score and the key pieces of information from that game as well. So shout to Jack Kearns.
That's our preview. Trav, it is time for Trav's trivia question of the week.
Let's go back to last week and talk about Trav's trivia questions of the week. They involve the 3-pointers because we had spent some time talking about the 3-point challenge in the mid-season report that came out for that. So my question that I posed to you guys last week, first of all, what is the record for made 3-pointers in a boys state tournament game for the WIAA? I think one of you might have landed on this number, not the player, which is hard, but just what that number was. The number is 9 by Joel Clark from Ladysmith. Colton, I think you said 11 by Emmett Konieczny from Columbus Catholic, and he was at 5, so you were only off by a magnitude of a lot.
I
think their team hit a lot.
Yes.
So maybe that's what I was thinking.
Chris, I think you might have got to 9 on that.
So my guess, what I remember was that I did say 9, I thought, but I thought it was the Showalter kid at that one point, but I think he ended up with 7 in a game. But I don't know why. I just thought I had Jake Showalter's name in my head for a while, and I thought it was 9, but it was 7.
Yes, I think you're correct. I think he has the D1.
So maybe that's why I was thinking
game record. Jake Showalter from Germantown. And then on the girls' side, the record for most made 3-pointers in a girls' WIAA state tournament game is 7, held by a number of players. In fact, a quartet, Allie Zabel from Nina, who, by the way, just went off. We saw her hit 10 3-pointers for Connecticut, for UConn just the other day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Huge performance by her. Jaden Acker from Germantown. That was in 2021 at that weird COVID special where that one was at the Oshkosh Arena. I was actually at that. That was a weird year.
Did you have a cool looking mask on? Like, did you have like a like an authentic mask on, or did you just have one of those boring blue ones on?
It wasn't the like hospital one.
Or maybe
think
the mask thing, like the sleeve.
I think it was the Under Armour one.
We're getting into mask fashion. I love it.
Well, I have such a big head that a lot of the masks didn't fit me, to be honest with you. So, but we'll move on from that topic. And then a couple other girls from Aquinas are on that list as well. JC Weisbrod and Taylor Thusch are on that list as well at 7. So, all right, let's go to Trav's trivia question of the week for this week. What is the most losses for a team that won a boys WIAA state championship? Most losses in the season for a team that would go on to win a state championship. I'll let you guys throw out a guess, maybe if you have a number or even a team that you can think of that would.
I think I have a guess.
We will clip it. We will clip it. So what we put out is just Trav's question. But go ahead. What's your guess?
My guess. I mean, I really don't think it's as many losses as people think it is. Like getting to the state tournament, I think there's definitely been like double-digit losses for teams, I believe. But like,
what Racine or Prairie School have last year? 15.
Yeah, it was 15, I think, right? But my guess was Tosa West was 6 last year. Is my guess. They were like 24-6.
So what I can't remember is if the Meerstein teams from GB New Lutheran that year that they went on, did they win it? When GB New Lutheran went with, I think Sam Meerstein, the head coach Mark's kid, was on that team. They were like 9-11 entering the state tournament, but I can't remember if they won it. I don't think they did. That would be, if they won it, that would be my guess. So 11.
And I feel like it would be more recent just because there's more games played, right? So like more opportunity to lose games where like when you're playing 18 regular season games, I don't know. I could be completely off.
I think that logic is really good though. Yeah.
We'll find out. The other question for this week is, what is the most losses for a team that has won a girls WIAA state championship?
No guess.
Do you think it would be higher or lower than the boys?
Lower.
I think it would be lower too. Yep.
Okay. We'll find out next week.
Yeah. I'm going through my brain. Girls side, not picking up one that jumps off like the GB New Lutheran team.
Careful. Don't get lost in there.
Yeah. It's a big head. There's a lot of space to get lost too.
You guys have both said you have big heads within
They
the
are
last 2
large.
minutes.
They are large.
I have a tiny head.
Okay, you see this hat? It barely hangs on when I have to put it on.
I can tell you guys that myself and my 7-year-old son have very similar sized heads. Mine's a little bigger yet, but back in the day with fitted hats, man, if a size 7 was like loose. So
you know what size my fitted hat is? 7 7/8.
Whoa.
I think mine is 6/8, though I haven't had one on. I haven't done a fitted
Did you
hat
just say 6/8?
3/4, 7 3/4. I haven't had a fitted hat since I think I was in high school though, because they just are not comfortable. We're getting off topic. We are at the end of this. You can tell we're off topic. It's 10:30. We're tired. We're ready for bed. We're ready to get some scout in if you have that on the docket for tonight. As always, we are presented by boundwisconsin.com. Head over there this week. We'll have the is it Friday that the boys mid-season seedings will come out, so we'll have that later in the week. Throughout the week, you'll have your athlete player of the weeks. We'll have media polls come out on Monday, as well as some information articles. But most importantly, go there, get your scores, stats.
If anybody is still listening at this point, 2 hours into our podcast, if you're listening, send me a DM on Twitter and I'll send you a Bound Wisconsin sticker. We've got a bunch. I'll send you one as an Easter egg for anybody still listening.
I bet you TJ Zwiffle is going to pop this on at 3 a.m. when he gets up to go out to the farm, and he's going to text me and be like, hey, get me one of those. So that's it. Thanks, everybody, for joining us on the baseline. Sign us off, Chris.
To the baseline.